Well, good afternoon and
Good
welcome,
afternoon.
welcome. And of course, as Deborah mentioned earlier, this is our second annual Spilling the Tea with Women in Politics. Now, some of us have our teacups from last year. If so, I hope they are filled with tea or something special. Uh, and, we're just so glad to have you with us again. Now, the caucus utilizes this event to recognize the contributions of women, particularly those contributions within our political system. So this year's National Women's History Month theme is Women Providing Healing, Promoting Hope. Women Providing Healing, Promoting Hope. Now, although the national theme primarily focused on the tireless work of the caregivers and frontline workers during this ongoing pandemic, it also recognizes the thousands of ways that women provide healing and hope just really throughout history. When we reflect upon our nation's political history, women have always been involved in politics directly, indirectly, sometimes whispering to those men's ears who, we saw, but we knew behind the scenes, there were a lot of women who just really worked in the political sector way before we had been given the vote through the 19th Amendment. And that was in 1920. Many are elected leaders, but some really were a more powerful political force behind the scenes. And it's through the work of these elected officials and women behind the scenes who mobilize both female and male citizens to enact laws and policies that will enhance life for all Americans. It is through these women that we gain hope. Let me say that again. We really gain hope for a truly democratic nation, a truly democratic society. Through their ceaseless work, we can have hope that our nation will heal from the social and political ills that plague our communities as well as our nation. So as we spill the tea this afternoon, we honor our sisters who seek to direct their time, energy, and talent working for us in the political arena, as well as the women whose shoulders upon which they stand. Now, I want you to put your thinking caps on because I have a little trivia questionnaire I'm going to have you answer. So I'm going to give you a minute to get a pencil and some paper, a pen and some paper, or, some of you may not need it because, we're just so brilliant. We can keep those answers in head. But it's only 4 questions. So are we ready for our first question?
Yes.
All right. Number 1, numero uno. Who is the first Black woman to be nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court?
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Thank you, and that is correct.
I want my prize too.
Thank you.
Your prize will be forthcoming. We have somebody. Don't mind keeping track of the person who initially shouts out the correct answer, because we'll have to send something.
And she's from South Dade, so all of you should know her.
Yes. A little trivia fact. Now I know that she was born in DC, but really all of her life was spent, pretty much her formative years were spent in Miami, and really Palmetto High, which those of us who live on the South End, right around the corner from us. So, you know,
That was a very easy question.
well, now, you know, I have to give y'all a little bit of just, you know, something light to start out with. You know, you educators, you know how y'all used to handle those tests, and sometimes you put the easy ones, and we tell students, answer the easy ones first. Then, you know, they'll help you with the more difficult ones.
Okay.
Okay, so then let's go to question number 2. Who was the first Black female federal judge in U.S. history?
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Constance Baker Motley?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Aha!
Jane?
But I'm a lawyer in the crowd, so I'm supposed to.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna give you an extra point. You know how you get those extra credit points?
I'll take it.
Okay. Can you tell me one thing that both she and our future Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, have in common?
They went to Howard.
Birthday.
I don't know.
Birthday.
Birthday. Somebody said
Oh.
birthday.
Larissa Lucky.
Okay. Loretha want to make sure she gets a Loretha.
Give Loretha that point. You know, important. Points matter. Yes, Constance Baker Motley was the first Black woman to argue at the Supreme Court. And she argued 10 landmark civil rights cases and won all but one. She won 9. So that's an interesting fact. And yeah, she and both Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson share the same birthday. 49 years apart though. All right.
Wow.
Number 3. Who was the first woman to be elected as mayor of Miami-Dade County?
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Oh, that would have been wonderful.
Father.
Who said that?
Father.
Was that
Yeah,
Marie?
yellow.
Yes.
You are absolutely correct. And you get point number 2.
Who was?
All right. And last but not least question. I should have made this harder, but I'll make it a little easier. Who was the first Haitian American woman from Florida to be elected to a U.S. congressional seat?
Dade Joseph?
No. A U.S. congressional.
She's running for senator now. I can't think of her name.
Say it again.
I said, isn't she running for senator now? I'm having a blank on her name.
She just won. She was in a tightly contested race, as a matter of fact.
Right.
And won by
10
votes. That's why votes matter.
2 votes.
Right.
Broward County, Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah,
Broward
she's
Yes.
in
County.
Broward. She beat
Yes.
Gail Holness.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was it
What's
her
her
name?
name?
Carolyn.
Her
McCormick.
person- Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
McCormick,
McCormick.
yes, yes.
Yes.
McCormick,
Couldn't remember
yeah.
the name.
McCormick. Okay, I'll give somebody an extra point if they tell us
I
who.
believe that was our president, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Was that our
It is.
president?
It is. I had to just pop in because I love spilling tea.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you
please,
so much.
please recognize Miss Venus Smia. Lovely.
Lovely.
And she's joining us, I hate to say this, from a sick bed. So
Oh.
keep her in your prayers, and we are truly happy you
Thank
I
you
don't
so
know, girl. Sometimes your body tells you to slow down. You got to listen to it.
Drop by. But
All right, but I'm going to give somebody one extra point if they can say. Remember, I said that Sheila Sherfilis McCormick was the first Haitian American woman from Florida. who is the first Haitian American woman, female, to be elected to Congress? Anybody know that one? You probably seen her. Her name was Mia Love, but she was not a Democrat. I just, I'm trying to give a little equal play. Well, not equal play. I know. I just figured I'd mention that. But anyway, yeah, y'all did wonderful quiz. Y'all did wonderful. So prizes will be forthcoming, and thank everybody for participating. Yay.
Thank you. Wonderful.
I'm gonna turn it over to Ms. Deborah Powell at this point.
Now, I know all of you don't have this wonderful mug. They are still available. You know, a souvenir, you can buy it before the event or even after the event. I do have to do a plug because I am the event chairperson. So they're $12 each, and we would love you to really think about it, and we'll definitely try to make sure you get one if you are
I'd like
interested.
to put in an order, please. This is Tanisha.
Absolutely.
I'd like to put in an order.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we will get those to you. But on that note, even if you don't have this mug, we'd like you, since we are in the comforts of our home, if you could take a few minutes and go get some type of mug, glass, whatever you feel comfortable. We are going to do a little tea toast, and then we're going to get into the meat of the matter because we are really excited about hearing from our dynamic speaker for the evening. So if you would take a few minutes, I'm going to give you a little bit of music so you can just kind of, you know, get ready. And if you would go and get this, and we'll do a tea toast, and then we'll be, as I said, we'll open up everything, and we are looking forward to hearing from our wonderful speaker, Ms. Colyer. Take about 2 minutes to do that. Thank you. I'll give you a little bit of music to do it by. So if you could go get a glass, mug, whatever you're comfortable with. And then we'll be starting in a minute. And since my music is delayed, I'll just make up a song. It's time to go get your mug so you can sip some tea with us. Time to get a mug today so you can sip some tea with us.
That sounds lovely.
Forward, and we thank you for being with us this evening.
I got my mug.
I've got my mug. You got a mug. I got a mug. Everybody's got a mug. Now that's an original song. Okay, ladies, let me just go into as I said, the meat of our program. We are excited to have Ms. Colyer with us. As I said, she's a dear former colleague of mine from Miami-Dade College, and quite a legend there during her tenure. And as you can see, and when you hear, I'm gonna try to read it because I think it's very important, because Jackie is, as we're celebrating Women's History Month, she's a woman that's done a lot of different things, and I think that's wonderful. So I'm going to just kind of read a little bit from her bio, and then we'll get into hearing from her. We are going to open up the floor after she shares her words of wisdom with us to ask some questions, because we do want to encourage some dialogue, if you will. At the beginning of this session, those of you joined later, we had an opportunity to kind of have some ladies chit chat. So we really want you to feel comfortable and relaxed, but we do want to hear from her. So very quickly, Jacqui Colyer is an avid learner, historian, and community advocate, and she was born, I did not know, in Charleston, South Carolina, and reared in Miami, Florida. She's deeply connected to her Liberty City passage, referring to herself as its daughter. So she has here, she is Liberty City's daughter. I just wanted you to know that. Make a note of that in case we ask that as a trivia question on next year. She was schooled in Dade County Public Schools, and she continued her education at Winthrop University for her undergraduate degree, and she completed her master's degree at Barry University and is a doctoral candidate at the University of Miami in higher education. As I said, doing a whole lot of different things. Starting her career as a social worker with the Department of Children, of Family, and Big Brothers and Sisters, she started teaching introduction courses at Florida Memorial University and becoming a professor at Miami-Dade College for 17 years. Grant writing led her to a career in housing. Jackie wrote a grant for the Dade County Department of Housing and later became the Director of Resident Services at the Department of Housing. She eventually rose to become the Regional Director of the Florida Department of Children and Family Services in Miami and Chicago. As a leader in the community, she has served on several boards: Workforce Development Board, the Children's Trust, the Overtown Advisory Board, and Catalyst Miami. Interestingly enough, Jackie discovered a talent she had not noticed on her way to retirement when her friend and mentor, Dr. Enid Pinckney, asked her to serve on the board of the historic Hampton House. The joy of learning about and remembering the past, her history, her community's history, and the stories she heard during the Jim Crow era shaped her community. And thus she began her career in historic preservation and restoration. Very, very interesting. The passion has led her and her sister resecuring homes in Liberty City neighborhoods. Her current project, the historic Lindsay House, once owned by a Miami entrepreneur, one of the wealthiest Black men in Miami. And you know, I'm very curious to know who that was, but I'm sure we'll find out. I have some ideas. During the 1930s and 40s, but his story has been lost to history because no one has told his account or any of the stories of a community that must be said. And thus, historic preservation and restoration has become her passion and her new vocation and career. I introduce to some and present to others, Ms. Jacqui Colyer, Liberty City's daughter.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, that bio sounds so much nicer when you read it. So I'm gonna have you come on as my walk-up introduction person from now on. So just know that whenever I speak again, you're gonna be the walk-up intro person.
Okay.
You'll be the
and I'll try to, we'll work on the walk-up.
You work on the song. First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me, Deborah. I want to say it's just so good to see some of my friends again. You know, Vanya and I don't know who Galaxy A32 5G is, but thank you. Thank you, Jane, for showing up. And I see that Miss Venus Mia has left, but I do want to say thank you for at least popping in. The Thomas Bland that you see there, that's my mother, who's in New Smyrna. And I'll tell a little bit about her and about, you know, the whole thing with when I get to that section. But let me get to the heart of why you invited me here today. And I'm going to tell you what I think is happening right now in America and what is happening in the in our community. I was speaking with a gentleman the other day, a young man, a campaign staffer for a candidate. We started talking about candidates, and I asked him what he thought about Val Deming's run for the Senate. And he said, oh, she can't win. Now, you know, I was taken aback, right? I mean, he says this to me, young white guy He says, oh, she can't win. There's no way she can win. She doesn't have the name recognition. She doesn't have the money. She doesn't have the name. He kept saying name recognition. And I just looked at him and I said to myself, and then she said, her opponent, I mean, the guy who's the incumbent, is much too strong. He has great ties in the Latin community. He has raised a ton of money. The other, the other party has helped him raise money. And I looked at him in dismay, because all of us have heard that told to us how many times? All of us have been told by some teacher, some principal, some director of a department that you can't do that. You don't have the talent, you don't have the this. They come up with all kinds of things. So I looked at him and I said to myself, and I said to him, you don't know who we are. You don't know who we are. You have never dealt with determined Black women. And that's what I said to him. And he looked at me like, ooh, I touched a nerve, didn't I? I said, no, you didn't touch a nerve. You just don't know who we are. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about 3 women that I just dearly love, because these 3 women were absolutely incredible. And these 3 women are the women whose shoulders all of us stand on. We are the women who have come behind these women, who have stood up and stood out and who said, this is not going to happen on my watch. The first person I'd like to talk to you about is a wonderful person, a wonderful woman from the Daytona area. And I'm sure you all know who I'm going to talk about. But I'm going to talk about her because you got to know who Mary McLeod Bethune was and where she came from. Mary McLeod Bethune was the 15th of 17 children. Her parents had been slaves, enslaved people. This woman came through a way that nobody expected her to do. Her parents encouraged her, though, because she was a person who loved school, who loved to learn. So they encouraged her and they sent her to Scotia College in Concord, North Carolina, and to Moody College in Chicago, Illinois. And I believe in audience participation. So I am going to share with you some photos. And when you see photos of the people, of the person that I'm talking about, I want you to just shake your hand like this and say, I know who I am because I am a part of her. I am one who came from that background. I have the strength and the courage of Mary McLeod Bethune flowing through my veins, because Mary McLeod Bethune was an amazing woman. Mary McLeod Bethune led and started, I don't know if you can read it because I can't figure out how to make the screen go up. Oh, there it is, sorry. So you can see what it says at the bottom. Mary McLeod Bethune with students at the Daytona Educational and Industrial School for Negro Girls. This was her first school. And I want you to understand something about this first school of hers. This was a small school. It wasn't even a college or anything like that. She got with the Cookman School, Cookman Industrial School out of Jacksonville, Florida. And the 2 schools joined together and started a Bethune-Cookman 4-year college. Want to know how she got that land to do that? She bought an old dump. It used to be a dump. She turned it into the first part of the Bethune-Cookman College campus. Interestingly enough, where my mom lives right now in New Smyrna is an area called Bethune Beach. President Roosevelt gave Mary McLeod Bethune land in order to build, and she took the land which is on the east coast, on the coast of New Smyrna. And she wanted it to be a place where Blacks and whites could go to the beach and who could live, could be entertained and enjoy themselves. And thus became Bethune Beach. She sold land at Bethune Beach to Black people, and Black people live in this area. Used to be all Black. Now it's not so Black, but it was a wonderful beach that it still is a wonderful beach community in the New Smyrna area. And so here you see a picture of Mary McLeod Bethune. You gotta shake your hands. I can't see any hands shaking. All right. From the state archives. Everything is from the Black archives today. No, this is from the state archives. Interestingly enough, Mary McLeod Bethune visited the historic Hampton house. I had to get that plug in. That's my commercial. Visited the historic Hampton house. Visited the historic Hampton house when she was selling land to Black people in order to pay for the university and to make everything work. So here she is with Eleanor Roosevelt, hands up, with Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, what's interesting is that 3 years earlier, Mary McLeod Bethune had been with Herbert Hoover. And Herbert Hoover invited her. Now, this is really cool. Herbert Hoover invited her to be one of his consultants, but he never asked her to do anything. You end up being a consultant that is not a consultant. You're just there because for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. But under the Roosevelt administration, she became very influential. And here she is with Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt in 1937, as she was a true consultant to the Roosevelt administration. And what did I tell you? They don't know what? They don't know who we are. They have no clue whose energy, whose love, whose talent flows through our veins. Because we are all Ellen Roosevelt too, but we are all Mary McLeod Bethune. And we stand on her shoulders as we just move forward and figure out all of the things that we want to do as well. In 1923, that was 1923, the negotiations between the two schools were met. But I want to just go back and read one part of this to you. Her work with the Roosevelt administration continued when she established and led the informal Black cabinet, which was ultimately laid the political foundation for what would become the modern civil rights movement. Now, Mary McLeod Bethune was amazing, but this next woman is from Tallahassee, Florida. And notice how I'm weaving history into all of this, because they don't know who we are. We have not told them. We have not let them understand, but this is who we are. Here we have Dorothy Nash Tooks standing in front of her hotel after her son's wedding. Dorothy is in the center, shaking hands with the gentleman. Have y'all ever heard of Dorothy Nash Tooks? Mm-mm. No? You've never heard of her? She's absolutely amazing. You heard of her?
Dorothy Nash
Tooks. Mm-hmm. Dorothy Nash Tooks is from Tallahassee, Florida. And she was the founder of the Bonds School in Tallahassee, Florida. Back during the day, little Black children did not go to school because there were no schools necessarily for them, especially elementary schools, which meant that kids were not ready to go to high school. So they ended up, not being able to get good jobs or to have any type of skills. So Dorothy Nash Tooks started a school called the Bond School. she went to the school, to the education department in Tallahassee, and asked them, could she start teaching elementary school children, because there were no schools for Black children, elementary schools for Black children. But she decided that, then they told her, you can teach them if you can find a place for them. She eventually found this church in Tallahassee, which is also a historic building. And she taught school in that building until she had to have 3 different locations because parents wanted their children to learn. This is a picture, shake your hands, here's Dorothy as the teacher here. And she took that area and took the schools and made them basically the hub of the Frenchtown community. And if any of you know anything about Tallahassee, there's a section of town called Frenchtown, which was only known as Frenchtown because the French Lafayette was given this area of Florida in order to pay him back for all that he did during the Revolutionary War. So Frenchtown was largely turned into became a Black community. And this is where Dorothy Nash Tooks started her school and also turned her house into a green book, but hers was in the blue book. There was a blue book and a green book. The green book hotels were those places found by Victor Green. But the blue books was just another spinoff of the green book. And her hotel was listed in the green book as a place where Blacks could seek accommodations because they couldn't seek accommodations in any of the white hotels during Jim Crow. And my last darling is none other than our own who?
Gwen Cherry.
Gwen Cherry.
Gwen Cherry. Gwen Cherry was amazing. Now, unlike Mary McLeod Bethune, who came from a family of 17 and had parents who were formerly enslaved, Gwen Cherry's father was Dr. Sawyer, one of the first and pioneer doctors in Miami. Gwen Cherry went to Florida A&M. I don't know anybody who went there, but Gwen Cherry, just teasing. Gwen Cherry attended Florida A&M University and was for 17 years a math teacher, 20 years, excuse me. I worked for 17 years as a teacher. She was a math teacher for 20 years at Miami Northwestern High School. She left Miami Northwestern High School and after teaching for 20 years, went back to law school at FAMU, because at one point, you got to remember, FAMU had a law school in Tallahassee. Somehow they got convinced that they could, because Florida State wanted to have a law school, they did not want to have the competition of FAMU's law school. So FAMU got hoodwinked and lost their law school while Florida State got a law school. Florida State was supposed to share the law school with FAMU, but somehow it just didn't happen. At any rate, now the school, of course, is integrated, so it doesn't matter. But FAMU also now has a law school in Orlando, Florida. But let me tell you about my good friend, Gwen Cherry. Isn't she beautiful? She was the first Black woman legislator in the state of Florida. She hung out with all of the good guys. Here is Dick Rennick. I don't know if any of you know him because you're probably all too young, but his brother was Ralph Rennick, who was on the news on channel. What was it? None of you know this, so don't act like you know. On the news on Channel 4 back in the day.
Yeah.
Was it Channel? Was it Channel 10?
I think it was on 4. No, he was on 4.
It was 4, yeah.
Yeah.
Now y'all know, because y'all weren't watching, but your mothers and your grandmothers was watching Channel 4.
Right.
Mostly because that was the news that at least catered in some part to the Black community. So here she is with Dick Rennick on the floor of the House of Representatives. And what were you supposed to say when I showed her picture? They don't know
who we are.
They don't know who we are. And this is the last photo. And all of you should be so proud, because who is this that they're standing with, that Gwen Cherry is standing with?
That's John Doe.
Jimmy Carter, John
Carter.
Doe, and Anna Reeve
And the
Doe.
Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Trisha Doe.
Duke.
And this family was one of the few families that was actually a part of the whole push to get Jimmy Carter elected when he ran for president. And so best wishes to who? The Doe family. But you also see Representative Gwen Cherry with the family of John and Patricia Doe. So what were the girls' names? I don't remember. I only know Tanana Reeve.
Tanana Reeve. I don't remember the other ones.
Yeah, I don't either. But I thought, I was hoping that you all would at least remember John Doe and Patricia Doe,
Yes,
because they were such pioneers, especially in the South Dade community.
Mm-hmm.
So I want all of us to remember who we are. I want all of us to not forget whose shoulders we stand on. I want all of us to remember that we have so much to give and so much to offer. Because I want you to remember that most of us in this audience are teachers, except for Jane. She's a lawyer. But for the most part, we're teachers. We come from an educational background. I'm trying to unshare, but I can't figure it out. We come from educational, there we go, I see it. We come from an educational background. We come from this community. We come from a love of family, from a love of people, from a love of just doing the right thing for our communities. Gwen Cherry said some things I just want to share with you. And one of them is that because she was a big leader in the national women's organizations. She spent a decade in the Florida House of Representatives. Cherry was a vocal advocate for equality for women and minorities. But I want you to listen to what this quote that she says. I think these two groups have been left out of the mainstream for a long time. You know, you can't just stand aside and criticize. I think this is where the answer is going to be. Women and Blacks have to get more political power to make meaningful changes. I've had my priorities in order, and my Black priorities came first and women came second. When you're talking about people's rights, if you're going to fight for one set of rights, you've got to fight for the rights of the other. It doesn't make sense if you don't. Gwen Cherry, 1974. So those are my three go-to women. Whenever I just get kind of confused, I can't say, think, okay, what would Mary McLeod Bethune do? She would start a group, join a group, or find a group that was doing what needed to get done, and she would do it. What would Dorothy Nash Tooks do? Oh, she would turn her house into a hotel and become an entrepreneur during a time when Black people could not seek accommodations in white hotels. And oh, what would my good buddy Gwen Cherry do? Gwen Cherry would run for office. Gwen Cherry would make changes, and Gwen Cherry would stand up for those people that she knew needed to be stood up for. So they don't know who we are. They don't know who you are, Vanya. They don't know who you are, Deborah. They don't know who you are, Motopure. They don't know who you are, Dr. Bradley Cousins. They don't know who you are, Laretha. They don't know who you are, Jane. They know who Mom is. They don't know who you are, Mia. They just don't know, but we do, because we know who we came from and we know who we are, and we are going to make things happen, and Val Demings is going to win.
Woo! Yay!
Yay, yay, yay.
Okay, questions. Preguntas. That's my only two words I got. That's my one word in Spanish. Preguntas.
Well, now, what a wonderful speech. You got us all riled up, ready to go, because we know this is a very important year And we know there was an interesting quote Coretta King said that women, if the soul of this nation is to be saved, that we must become its soul. So women, we have a really very important mission to really see significant change now. And as I said, we have 2 women. Katunji, you know, her confirmation hearing starts tomorrow, and we've got to be there for her and support her. We know it's going to be a long journey. There's already been controversy about credentials and whatever, which we know never would have probably even been a question, but we're not going to go down that road today because that's a whole nother forum. But I do have some questions, and then we'll, you know, those other participants, if they have any questions, are definitely free to ask those questions. Ms. Colyer, what has been your greatest, what would you consider, because you've done a whole lot of things, what has been your greatest achievement as a community advocate, and why?
Ooh.
If you had to kind of narrow it down.
You know, I went to Edison Senior High School right at the beginning of school integration, right? And I was just, you know, my mom insisted, she's on the line, so she knows this is true, that we attend Edison Senior High School. And at Edison, during every pep rally, they would play DIXIE. And I used to get so upset. And I would tell, you know, her about it, and she would say, well, you can do something about it, or you can keep listening to it, or you can do something about it. So, you know, for years, you know, just, you know, we led a protest in high school. I was a part of leading a protest in high school. But it wasn't until last year that, after, I promise it's been 50 years, I guess, 50 years, DIXIE Highway is now Harriet Tubman Highway. And that came about through a lot of collaboration with just about everybody that I could get at the table, you know, to help us. It came with white participation. It came with, and it was especially helpful because a young Cuban girl, 16 years old, started writing letters to the commission about it. And I don't know how many of you know Mo Abedi from the Children's Trust. He was the president of the Children's Trust for years. His granddaughter rekindled that, and I helped her with that. And as you all know now, we have Tubman Highway, at least in Miami-Dade. Still got a lot of state to go, but you know, just you know, you do what you can where you can, and that's one of the things that I really consider just a big plus, because Coral Gables, where are you, Jane Moskowitz? Your city was the last holdout, and I sat in that commission chambers from 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they knew why I was there. It was one of those looks, I'm the only Black person sitting in the chambers, and they're looking at me like, do we want to hear her? Do we want to go through this? And so at about 3:45, they unanimously voted. They flipped that over, and they unanimously voted to join with all the other municipalities in changing the name of DIXIE to Tubman Highway.
But they weren't happy about it. They were just forced to do it.
Yeah. They were like, yeah.
But they did it, and
They did it. And I congratulated all of them on their wisdom and on their being the city beautiful.
Absolutely.
May I ask a question?
Sure. Absolutely. Sure.
I always had, I mean, thank you so much for speaking today and you know, and telling us about that. And I always wanted to find out regarding, why did you pick, not that she is not an incredible person in history, Tubman, when there's so many African Americans, Blacks in Miami-Dade and in Florida that impacted, why couldn't we change it to somebody more locally? Or was there a reason?
There wasn't really a reason. It was just that because Harriet Tubman, you know, led Underground Railroad. And to me, it was like a highway, you know, that she led people out of slavery. And so when we started thinking about it, we thought about local people, but we felt that you know, the whole thing of DIXIE is so significant across the country, not just in Florida, but DIXIE goes from Chicago all the way to, you know, to Florida. So, you know, the other states have to figure it out on their own. But for us, it was just, you know, that this was something that we wanted to do in Miami, starting in Miami. We still got to go, like I said, across, you know, to the state legislature. But, you know, we'll see. We just have to work hard and do what we can where we can. Because if it takes 50 years, you know, to get it just in Miami, so, you know.
And I'm sorry, Mrs. Colyer, I don't mean to interrupt, but I do see that name as just being so foundational. And just as you mentioned, you can get on that highway and drive from here to a totally different state. So a more local name may not be recognized, you know, elsewhere, but of course, we know history is history. And Harriet Tubman, that is a foundational name, which is extremely based in American history and African American history. So I think that was a very wise selection to have that name as the one.
And we were also kind of upset that that she didn't make it to the 20. You know, we wanted her on the $20 bill because I was waiting to put my Tubmans in my wallet, but we didn't get that yet. And I think it's still going to happen because I do think that this president will, you know, reenact the Harriet Tubman $20 bill.
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned the underground, you know, the highway, it's really kind of symbolic, if you will.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so
that was what it was for us.
yeah,
More
I could
symbolic
see
than
why-
anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Why Harriet Tubman perhaps would, you know, have a broader,
Yeah.
if you will, impact.
But that's a good question because we were asked that over and over, and we really had to think about it because we did think about some local folks, you know, including, I mean, Gwen Cherry, and you know, we thought about a lot of people, but that name, you know, Tubman's name just kind of, you know, just came up to the top when we really started looking at it and thinking about it.
Yes. Well, can you share a little of your history as a political activist in the Democratic Party, and specifically in your role now as the current president of the Miami-Dade Democratic Women's Club?
You know, I just think about things. I don't know about. I don't even know if I call myself a you know, a leader necessarily. I guess I am because I am the president of the club. So I guess they would say that I am. But you know, my story is. You know what? I love how Michelle Obama says, "I'm not different," you know, and all of you have the same kind of skills and passions, you know, that I have. You know, all of us stand on the shoulders of some absolutely amazing folks. You know, I didn't put my mom in there, you know, as one of my sheroes, but she really, really is, because she has pushed me and, you know, pushed me forward in ways that I never even thought about, you know, because just like all of those women were told that they couldn't do this because, quote, they didn't have the skills, they didn't have the know-how, they didn't have the background, they didn't come from the right family. You know, my mom said, ignore all that. And most of the time she ignored it. So we had to ignore it because she wasn't here. She wasn't having it, nor was she hearing it. So, you know, when teachers would say things like, Well, maybe you ought to just put her in a trade school, because she's never going to get through college. I thought, and to think that she never told us that, she would never say that to us, so, so those are the kinds of, that's I guess who my, sheroes are, and the herstory, that goes with all of that. So, yeah.
Well, because you have kind of multiple roles, and as the chairperson of the, just kind of shifting a little bit, of the historic Hampton House, and it was just wonderful news to hear them to restore the because it had been in the making for a long time.
15 years.
I had the opportunity to go there, and it's just a beautiful venue, facility, and they've had a lot of wonderful cultural activities there. And I guess I was curious to know kind of what is the direction in terms of kind of getting the community more engaged, because I noticed around that area a lot of redevelopment, a lot of things have changed, the demographics have changed. And in the Brownsville area. So just wanted to know, in terms of vision, in terms of community outreach, engagement, and preserving that history, what kinds of things are kind of being discussed or considered to kind of, grow on that, if you will?
Gentrification is not going to stop. It's not going to leave us. But the one thing that we can do, and this is one of the things that we're working on right now, is a historic designation of Brownsville as a historic district. Because if we get the historic district for Brownsville, then it keeps its character. But even more than that, people will know who was there, who developed this community. They will know that Black people were the ones who made this suburb, because you got to know, when Brownsville came online as a development, it was a suburb of Miami, Overtown, and Liberty City. It was almost like Richmond Heights, which was like, who is going to live down there? It was like, who's going to live way over there? And so the first suburb of Miami, of Black Miami, was Brownsville. And so through historic district designation, it doesn't change, it won't change. People won't have to paint their houses the same color or anything like that. But what it will keep is the character of the community, and it will keep the nature of the community, and it will have to recognize and identify who settled this community. So, you keep what you can, and you just say, because kids don't want to live where their parents lived in Brownsville. They're not going to live there. They're all up in Broward County, in Miramar, or Pembroke Pines, and they're not coming back to Miami. So for us, it's like, how do we preserve what was the character and the nature of this community, so that folks will know who developed and who settled this community.
Right. Thank you.
So
my last question, and then, like I said, we'll open the floor. As a former political candidate, I found out you were running, and I was saying, oh, I wish I could vote for her, but I'm not in that district. Yeah. But what was your greatest challenge during your campaign for those women that are perhaps considering running for political office in the future?
I hear you, and I tell you, one of the things that I think I did that I would not do again, and that is, I would not wait until I was 50 to run for office the first time. Y'all ever notice that men don't ever think they're not qualified to run for anything? They'll run for office at the age of 12. I could be president at 12. But as women, we wait until forever to run for office, or to put our names in the hat for anything. And so I would tell women just to, if you're a little nervous or have some angst, just start early, run for dog catcher, or run for mosquito control board, or run for being on one of those, like every commissioner has 18 million committees that they have to put people on. You get experience by just being on those committees. The second thing I would say is that running for office taught me is, don't run for a legacy seat unless you're a legacy. What does that mean? If your name ain't meat, don't run for the meat seat, because it ain't gonna happen. But if you live in a small town, run for the commissioner of or councilman in like Miami Shores, if you live in Miami Shores, or run for mayor if you live in El Portal, or, and I only know north cities, but Palmetto Bay is a great one. I mean, any of you could run and win in Palmetto Bay. But if it's a legacy seat, it's totally different, because they come with, all of everything that goes with, that particular seat. Just like Gwen Cherry. Gwen Cherry came from a family that was, politically connected, wealthy. And so, it's very different. And then the last thing I would say is, understand that to run for office, you have to raise money. So start with your family, because they will give you money. God bless them. You got to love them. And then, you branch out and you raise money that way. I was fortunate. I was pretty good at raising money, because I didn't mind asking for money. Even as the chair of the board for the historic Hampton House, I don't have any problems asking for money. And so that's a part of what you got to be able to do. And you got to sell yourself. I mean, you got to be able to tell people how wonderful you are. And if you can't do it, find somebody who is on your campaign manager, whatever, who can tell your story and get Deborah. Because see how you saw how Deborah told that great story about me? Get somebody who can tell your story and who loves you enough to tell that story to every single body. And that's why I say, in this thing with Val Demings, it's about all of us telling her story over and over and over. And if you haven't told it until you're sick and tired of it, then you haven't told it enough, because you got to be willing to tell the story every place you go, to everybody that you meet, to every person that you know, and be able to just say, hey, this is what, this is who should win. This is who is a good woman, a good candidate who will make a great senator, because she will be. I mean, you look at her, and if you looked at the first impeachment trial, she was amazing, and she's not an attorney. So, you gotta sell it. You gotta sell her, and all of us have to sell her and sell her and sell her. And this is my only commercial, and that is that the Democratic Women's Club of Miami-Dade has Val Demings signs. So if you want a Val Demings sign, there aren't many of them anywhere in America, but we have some. So, so let us know, and we'll figure out how to get some to you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, more questions? Because I mean, we have spilled lots of tea. We have gotten enlightened. I mean, we are ready to go. Any questions from any of our other participants?
Mrs. Colyer.
Yes.
Are you, or will you consider being a mentor to a young lady that might want to run for office or be in politics?
Absolutely, absolutely. If she joins the Democratic Women's Club of Miami-Dade, we would be more than happy to send her to training, to mentor her, to help her raise money, and to just teach her what it's like to run for office. Because one thing that I find about running for office is you have to have what they call fire in your belly, which means that you are willing to get up and go speak, willing to walk, campaign, canvass, make phone calls, raise money, and raise money. But a lot of it is, because listen to me, there is no such thing as a grassroots campaign. That's a big joke. If people give you $2 and $5, that's a good thing, because they're probably going to vote for you. But what you really need are folks who can give you, the max if they can, or whatever they can above, a certain level, because it takes money. That's the bottom line. You can't get your message out if you don't have money. But Democratic Women's Club has, or Democratic Women's Clubs of Florida has a training program for both campaign managers and for candidates. And campaign managers, that just teaches individuals how to run a campaign and how to help keep your candidate on track. If you had Melba here last year, you'll know that, that was one of her challenges, having a good campaign manager who would just keep her on track and who would help her identify, where to raise money and how to raise money, because Melba had the right message. I promise you, she had the right message. And it really was her year because it was her year. It's just that when you can't raise the money, you just can't do it. But I did a lot for her during, with her campaign. But it was just difficult because, when you have two Democrats running for the same office, it's hard for a Democratic club, to actually come out for one or the other,
Right.
But so yeah, so I'd be more than happy. Deborah has all of my contacts and all of my information, and I'd be more than happy, just attend one of our meetings. We can talk and I can introduce you to all of the folks who can help. And if it's a young person, I especially want them to, young woman, especially want them to get started early. Don't wait till you're 50 because, 50 is young to me, but it's still not young when you look at, what you have to do in order to, run for office and all of that. So, yeah. Now, what's crazy is that Daniela Cava, who is the mayor right now, and I have been friends for 30 years or so. And I remember when we were much younger, when I ran for office the first time, I said, well, Daniela, why don't we both run for the same office and then we can share it? You go to the meetings half the time and I'll go to the meetings the other half the time. She said, that sounds like a good idea. And then when she won the commission, she said, do you think it's still a good idea that you could take half and I'll take? I said, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Oh gosh, but she is such a good mayor. And she's probably y'all might have had Dennis Moss as your commissioner.
Yeah, we had Dennis Moss. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She was across the east of that how it went east of the highway? Yeah. Because I remember I was her driver for like a month. That was my commitment. Besides money, my commitment was to be her driver for a month. And I'll never forget driving around in South Dade. And I thought to myself, this feels like driving Miss Daisy. This just is, because I would not get out of the car because she literally campaigned to Republicans. She went to NPA, she went to Republicans. She wasn't worried about Democrats because she knew that we had her back. But she went to NPAs and to Republicans. And I would sit in the car like this. I wouldn't look right nor left. Because there are parts of South Dade that are just kind of like, So, yeah. But but I remember how hard she worked because there's nothing like running for office in July because it is hot as all get out there. And she canvassed every single day. That was when she was running for commission. When she ran for mayor, it's just, when you're running for the whole county, it's like, how much canvassing can you do? Although she, did canvass a little bit, but for commission, she canvassed literally every day. We must have, I think during that month that I was driving, I guess she knocked on close to 4,000 doors. I was like,
wow.
Oh. But this is me. And she's a really, really great person. So she would have been, she's just a good person. So yeah.
We've met her.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, good.
Yeah.
She's, like I said, she will go, she'll go anywhere, anytime, any day.
Right.
And you have to,
She
and
would have
that's,
been here today if you'd asked her.
yeah, and that's the resolve you have to have,
Yeah.
as you said. And
Yeah.
I think when you mentioned the whole thing about age, I mean, you gotta have a lot of you gotta have high energy to do, you know, the things that
Exactly.
are required to actually make it happen.
Yep.
And I like that question about the mentoring piece, because I think that's a very important piece that perhaps we haven't really looked at a lot, because we start grooming people kind of late into the process, when the grooming should really start, you know, at a particular stage, and we take them through different stages. And on the flip side of that, in terms of the mentoring, how do you, we as a caucus have had, you know, people come through, and the millennials will say that are running. And so you run into a lot of times millennials, while they have the technology piece and all of that going, sometimes perhaps because we are, we'll say, more seasoned, we'll use that word. Sometimes the words of wisdom are not as valued, if you will, because we're viewed as being, you know, the old word. So, and what happens is, we see where we can kind of be of some benefit and kind of giving some advice and whatever. I mean, I'm not a politician, but there's certain generic things I know that these are some things that, and what we've had, like young people that just didn't really value that, and perhaps would have benefited, if you will, from that seasoned advice. So that's
you don't
a
want
challenge, I think, with a lot of, in terms of the mentoring piece of trying to mentor and try to help young people come up the pipeline. Some of them feel like, well, you know, I know all of that, you know, not realizing that there's some things that we know that perhaps would be of some great benefit to you during that journey. How do you deal with that? And that has been a challenge that I've seen.
You know, the only thing that I've found that helps with that is to ask them to identify one of their aunts or uncles or, you know, grandmothers who can then be a sounding board for them. Because what I found happens is that because I've never tried to discourage, even if I just look at them and go like, they're not ready yet. I still don't, you know, I still don't want to discourage them, because
no, I don't.
You neither of us, but if you can help them to talk to someone that they love and trust, that's who they'll listen to, and that's who they'll hear it from. But they're not going to hear it from you, because, you know, they look good. They think what they call us boomer.
Yes.
Go away, boomers.
Yes.
Exactly. You know, exactly. So
boomers. Yeah.
And see, even like in the South Miami area, I'm working with an organization there. And right now on our commission, we have absolutely no representation, which in 2022 is just unbelievable.
Wait, I thought whatchamajig was there. What's his name?
No, the last commissioner of color was gentleman by the name of Gabriel Edmonds, and he basically retired.
Okay.
So
okay.
There are no, when I say people of color, I can be specific, African American representation
right.
on the commission at all. And that's just something that
what are the demographics of South Miami?
Well,
I thought it was like 30% Black.
It's changed, and it's probably less than that now.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it used to be about 30%.
Right, because of that, what you talked about earlier,
gentrification
has been on the rise. So
yeah.
That is something that we got to really take a look at as we look at these whole redistricting issues and all of that, how we can kind of maybe create our own little political groups, if you will.
Have you talked to Anna Price?
Yeah,
she was the mayor at one time.
Right. She's, yeah, and you know, she was asked to run, she didn't want to run, but we had a young man that did run, and let's just say, I'm gonna be very diplomatic about that gentleman, you know, just didn't want to listen to people, to me, that would have perhaps benefited him in terms of things that he could have done. So that's where we are, I know, with the South Miami area. And we're working on that.
Yeah, we have the same thing in the city of Miami, because that's where I live. I live in the city. And we had this one young man, and I really thought he was so talented and so smart. And I said, you know what? Give yourself 2 years. Go become the aide to this, you know, to the commissioner, and work through this, because you've raised $3,000. You're not gonna be able to buy a lot of signs or hire a lot of people for your campaign. And he told me the same thing what you said. I have social media. I have, you know, 18,000 followers. I'm like, do they vote?
18,000
do they vote
with no funding? Okay, all right. So we I guess those issues are all over, if you will.
Oh yeah.
Well, it has really been a pleasure. Really just kind of the sisterhood I really enjoyed, and I think these are some issues that we can talk about really all day, if you will. But we really want to thank you, Jackie, for being with us this afternoon. We know a tea. Now, you know, if anything about a tea, like I said, next year we're gonna have what they call a real tea. You know, because you know anything about African American culture, teas were, you know, teas were very, very special, particularly in the church environment. So we look to perhaps next year be able to do that. But as I said, it was an honor and a pleasure having you with us. And we look forward to perhaps hearing from you again in another kind of environment. So I'll be in touch. So
good. Please. I'm so glad I can't believe you found me. I am so glad you found me. You know something, Deborah, you know the president of Miami-Dade College now, Pumagiera?
Yes.
She was one of my students when I taught at Miami-Dade. And she cited me as one of her professors, and why she thought that education was so important when she was interviewed, and they brought me back as a surprise guest.
Wonderful.
To surprise her. And when we saw each other, you know, you see somebody, you know them because you taught them for it, you know. And she was one of the athletes. You know, I always had the athletes in my class. And she was one of the basketball players. She wasn't that good a basketball player, but she was a good student when she wanted to be. And I thought it was so incredible. But I wanted to share that with you, that she kept talking about me, but they couldn't find me because they didn't call you, I guess, but they finally found me. And but they were spelling my name wrong, so they couldn't find me. And they went back to Miami-Dade, you know, to the Kendall campus, and they asked somebody in the mailroom who still is there. And they said, oh, you got her name spelled wrong. This is how you spell her name. And they found me the next day, it seems like. But it was just so funny. And I thought to myself, because you were saying you were having a hard time finding me.
I found you. I was determined. Okay. So I looked everywhere, and I was like, okay, Jacquetta, you know, I had to go back and remember a lot of different names. I said,
yeah, this is true.
Like you say, at that time in Miami-Dade, it really was a very close family
Yeah,
type of environment. And
was.
so,
It really was.
yeah, made a big difference.
Yep.
But any other questions before we close for the evening? As I said, it's just been a wonderful experience. I am so glad, and I'd like to thank those who carved out a little piece of their time to come to our virtual tea with no tea. Next year, we promise tea, food, the whole 9 yards.
Just
But
make sure you call me early enough so that I can be ready to attend this tea with food in the whole 9 yards. You see my sconces? You see my little things in the back for my sconces to put the scones on, you know,
yeah,
and the
absolutely.
tea and
Absolutely.
I thought I was gonna have, I got one on each side.
No, so we're gonna have tea because the first year we even, I didn't want to, but we even had the little fascinator. We were ready.
Oh my gosh, I have one of those. Mine
We
is
were
purple.
ready. We were indeed ready. So next year we're gonna go all out, and we'll be inviting you and your club and other interested guests. It's been a pleasure, and like I said, I'd like to thank all the women and salute you as being dynamic women in your families, in your workplace, and in the community in celebration of Women's History Month. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with the South Dade Democratic Black Caucus. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Gonna
Have
get
a
in
good one,
touch with us.
everyone.
We want
Thank
those
you.
signs. We want some signs, okay?
Okay.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Wonderful
Thanks,
day.
Deborah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.